Hi everyone, welcome to AP Stats. So I am going to be creating some videos for you to watch over the summer so that we can have Unit 1 completed before the school year starts. This video today is going to go over Lesson 1, and then I'll have more videos for each of the lessons in this unit. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to just go ahead and jump right into it and start with page 7. Okay. So lesson 1 is called collecting a simple random sample. Basically, what this is teaching us to do is what's the simplest way for us to create a sample from a large population. So we're going to start with the main idea. A study is conducted when you are interested about collecting data to try to investigate an idea or prove a hypothesis. A population is an entire group of individuals or instances about whom we hope to learn. It is often extremely difficult, sometimes even impossible, to conduct a study on an entire population called a census. So an entire population is called a census. A really good example of what a census is the United States every 10 years goes around and tries to collect the data of the population of the people in the United States. So they'll do like a census survey, and so if you ask your parents, a lot of them will know about this. And this is how we get probabilities about statistics about, like, the average household income, average amount of kids that families have in the United States. But of course, this is really impossible because there's no way for you to collect the data of every single person in a population. So instead, we must collect a sample, which is a subset of a population, examine in hopes of learning about the population. A sample is said to be representative if the statistics computed from it accurately reflects the corresponding population parameters. So a simple random sample of a sample size n is a sample in which each set of n elements in the population has an equal chance of selection. Okay, so that's the important part. That's the key word. Equal chance of selection. The best defense against bias is randomization, in which each individual is given a fair random chance of selection. We will discuss how to randomly select a sample using a simple random sample in this lesson. From our sample, we either give a sample survey, conduct an observational study, or conduct a randomized experiment. Statistics are values calculated from sample data. We will then use these statistics to try to make a generalization about a population parameter. So we use these statistics to generalize about the population parameter. Due to sampling variability, the natural tendency of randomly drawn samples to differ from one another, our sample may not be exactly the same values as the population parameter. So sometimes the statistics will be very close to what the actual parameter is, but as long as it's within, as long as it's really close, it should be okay. So just to reiterate, right? From a sample, we get our statistics, and from the statistics, we would get our parameters, and from the parameters, we would get a generalization about the population. Okay. So down here has a bunch of different definitions that we will talk about, and how to pronounce a lot of these letters. So I use a lot of the Greek letters in AP Stats. So if you need to get yourself familiarized with how to pronounce these and how to write them, please do so over the summer. So let's go ahead and get started right here. We're now going to go to page 8. Okay. And we're starting with steps for collecting a simple random sample. So number 1, first step is to number the sampling frame. Okay, and I'll explain each of these steps when we get to the model problem. Number 2, use a random number generator, also abbreviated as RNG, to select N for our sample. Okay. And then 3, response variable. So you're going to record what the response variable is, which means it's the it's what we're measuring, so our measurement. Okay. So let's go ahead and go over the model problem. And feel free to either speed up, slow down, or even pause the video if you need time to catch up on the writing. I do go really fast since it is a video, and since you're given that ability to pause whenever, so just make sure that you do that so you can get the notes correctly. So the EPA wants to test 20 randomly selected locations near a former industrial waste dump and check each for evidence of toxic chemicals. The consultant has sectioned off 100 equally sized plots of land at the waste dump. Describe how to collect the sample using a simple random sample. Be sure to indicate the response variable and identify the statistics and parameter symbols that would be used. So, to sort of draw a picture of what is happening, we have this piece of land, okay? And I'm not going to draw 100 plot sizes, but pretend that this land got sectioned off into 100 individual equally sized pieces, okay? So this would be our sampling frame, right? It's the area, the frame, as you say it, of where we want to test things. So first step in a simple random sample is we're going to number our sampling frame, and here it's the plot of land. So number the plot of land from 1 to 100. Okay. Then number 2 is that we use a random number generator to select 20 different locations. So the reason why we're doing 20 is because it says right here that they want to test 20 randomly selected locations. Okay, and then number 3 is our response variable. And here we are measuring, so measure the toxic chemical levels in parts per million, so ppm. Okay. And then the question asks us to identify the statistics and parameter symbols that we use. For the statistics, remember that the statistics is always for the sample, right? So from our sample, we get our statistic, and this is always represented with X bar. So this is our sample's average, okay? So the average sample size. And then remember that with the parameter, so the population gives us the parameters, which is represented with the Greek letter mu, and this is the population's true average. Okay. Okay, so moving on, we now are going into the practice problem. What I really hope is that you first pause this video, take some time to figure out what it is that we are doing, and then play the video So pause the video, answer the questions on your own, then play the video again so that you can check your work. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and do both of these problems and then press it again to get your answers. So we'll go ahead and get started on number 1. A student organization wants to assess the attitudes of students towards a proposed change in the hours the library is open. There are 2,500 students in the school, and a student organization has access to a roster of all students at the school. Describe how to collect the sample using a simple random sample. Be sure to indicate the response variable and identify the statistics and parameter symbols that would be used. So first step is we're going to number our sampling frame, right? So number students from 1 to 2,500. Okay. Then this problem itself doesn't give us our sample size, so we're going to keep it very general and say that our sample size is n. So let n equal sample size. Okay. So number 2 would be use random number generator to select n amount of students. Okay. Number 3 is our response variable. So here, this one's a little tricky because we're not really, there's no like real number that we're measuring. Here we're measuring the attitude of students towards a proposed change in the hours. So here we're measuring students' attitude. Rewrite that. Students' attitude towards hour changes. Okay. Right, and then it says right here, be sure to indicate the response variable and identify the statistics and parameter symbols that would be used. So remember that X bar is for our sample. So this is the average students' attitude from sample, and then from our population, so pop, usually write that for our population, would be mu, and that's our true attitude towards the hour changes. Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to number 2 now. Number 2 says that there is a suspicion that there is milk contamination in a local city. There are 10 dairy farms in the area and each has 15 cattle. Describe how to collect the sample using a simple random sample. Be sure to indicate the response variable and identify the statistics and parameter symbols that would be used. So what we're going to do here is first, this is a multi-step, okay? So there are 10 farms and each farm has 15 cattle. So the first step is that, the first step is you're actually going to number our first sampling frame. So our first sampling frame is going to be the dairy farms. So number the dairy farms. Okay, from 1 to 10. Now let n be our sample size for the farms. So this will tell us how many farms we want to pick. So number 2 is use random number generator to pick N farms. Then after you pick the farms, let M be our sample size for cows. Okay, so then number 3 would be you're gonna first number each cow from 1 to 15, and then 4, use random number generator. So use a random number generator to pick M cows. Okay? And then our response variable. So response variable. Sorry, I'm going to rewrite this so that it's neater and you can see that. Our response variable is the number of cows that are contaminated. Okay, so again, our statistics is the X bar, so it's average number of cows in sample that is contaminated. And then our parameter, which is mu, is the true number of cows contaminated. Okay, so that concludes the video for lesson 1. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and create a video for all the other lessons, so you can go ahead and move on, find lesson 2, and get started there. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or even comment on the video below, and I will definitely answer any questions that you have.